Good evening, dear listeners. As the sun sets and the world outside quiets down, it's a perfect time to settle in and relax. Tonight, we invite you to join us on a gentle journey through the pages of history, where we'll explore a topic that may not seem thrilling at first glance, but holds a certain charm that can soothe the mind and lull you into a peaceful state of relaxation. This evening, we will delve into the uneventful, yet intricately woven, history of Viking settlement roof thatching inspection procedures and material affordability guidelines. Yes, you heard that right. This seemingly mundane aspect of Viking life offers a surprising window into their culture, their ingenuity, and the everyday routines that kept their communities thriving. As you listen, allow the soft cadence of my voice to guide you through the nuances of how these skilled craftsmen selected materials for thatching, ensuring that roofs not only provided shelter but also reflected the very essence of Viking resilience. We'll take a gentle stroll through the methods they employed to inspect these roofs, a process that was as much about community as it was about practicality. We will explore the types of materials that were available to them: grasses, reeds, and straw, each with its unique properties and advantages. You might find it fascinating to learn how these materials were valued, not just for their affordability but also for their effectiveness in keeping out the elements, creating a warm and inviting home for families nestled in those rugged landscapes. As we examine the guidelines for affordability, we'll uncover how the economics of the time influenced their choices, revealing a society that, while often romanticized for their fierce warrior spirit, also displayed an incredible understanding of resourcefulness and sustainability. Throughout our journey, it is in these moments that we see the heart of the Viking spirit, their ability to adapt, to endure, and to create beauty from the simplicity of their surroundings. This exploration serves not only as an insight into a lesser-known aspect of Viking life but also as an invitation to embrace the calming rhythms of history. As you listen, let the gentle unfolding of these stories wash over you, providing a serene backdrop for relaxation, reflection, and perhaps even a gentle drift into slumber. So, dear listeners, as we prepare to embark on this tranquil voyage through time, I encourage you to find a comfortable position, close your eyes if you wish, and allow the soothing sounds of history to envelop you. Let the worries of the day fade away as we explore the quiet yet significant world of Viking roof thatching, an endeavor that, while seemingly uneventful, holds a treasure trove of insights and lessons for us all. Now, without further ado, let us begin our exploration of the uneventful history of Viking settlement roof thatching inspection procedures and material affordability guidelines. Breathe in deeply, and allow yourself to be carried away into a world where every blade of grass and every thatched roof tells a story of resilience, community, and the enduring spirit of the Viking people. The Viking Age, traditionally dated from 793 AD to 1066 AD, is characterized by a range of maritime activities, including exploration, raiding, and settlement. However, one lesser-discussed aspect of their domestic life was the intricacies of roof thatching inspection procedures and material affordability guidelines, particularly in the settlements established throughout Scandinavia and areas influenced by Viking culture, such as the British Isles and parts of North America. The earliest known records pertaining to Viking settlement roof thatching can be traced back to the late 8th century in what is now Norway. Archaeological findings near the site of Avaldsnes, dated to approximately 800 AD, suggest that early Viking structures utilized a combination of wood and thatch for roofing, primarily sourced from local reeds and grasses. The prevailing architectural style during this period was the longhouse, characterized by a long, narrow, timber-framed structure with a steeply pitched roof designed to facilitate the efficient shedding of rain and snow. The thatching material was typically harvested in late summer, with specific guidelines established regarding its quality and appropriateness for roofing. The selection of thatching reeds was critical, as the effectiveness of a roof's insulation properties directly correlated with the material's density and moisture content. The earliest references to inspection procedures for thatching can be found in the historical text, the Saga of the Inglings, written in the 13th century, which details the responsibilities of the local chieftain, or jarl, in overseeing building maintenance. By the 9th century, as Viking settlements expanded into the British Isles following the establishment of Danelaw in 878 AD, the need for standardized inspection processes became evident. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle notes that the Norse settlers adopted some local building practices while retaining their traditional thatching methods. Thus, a hybrid style emerged, combining the Viking longhouse's elongated form with the thatched roofs prevalent in Anglo-Saxon architecture. In response to the growing complexity of settlement management, an administrative framework began to form around the inspection and maintenance of thatched roofs. The responsibility for overseeing these inspections often fell to the king, or local assembly, where community members gathered to address matters of governance. According to the Gulating Law, established in 1020 AD in Norway, it was mandated that roof inspections occur biannually, once in spring and once in autumn. Inspectors, often appointed from among the community's more experienced builders, were tasked with assessing the integrity of thatching, ensuring that it met the established standards of thickness and uniformity. The daily routines of those involved in thatching inspection were quite methodical. Each spring, as the thaw progressed, inspectors would commence their rounds. They would record the number of structures within their jurisdiction, noting the condition of each roof. Materials that were deemed inadequate were often flagged for replacement. This practice not only ensured the safety and comfort of the inhabitants but also provided a structure for communal accountability. The method of observation included a systematic evaluation of the thatch's alignment and how well it was secured against wind uplift, which was particularly pertinent in coastal settlements. In addition to the physical inspection process, there existed a set of material affordability guidelines. By the turn of the 10th century, Viking communities had developed a rudimentary economic framework that allowed for the assessment of costs associated with roofing materials. The pricing of thatching reeds varied significantly based on availability. For instance, during years of abundant growth due to favorable weather conditions, prices would plummet, whereas drought years would see a significant increase in costs. Records from the newly established settlement of York, founded as Jorvik in 866 AD, indicate that local councils would convene to determine a fair price for thatching material based on the prevailing market conditions. These councils would also establish guidelines dictating the maximum amount a household could be charged for labor associated with roof repairs, thus preventing exploitation by more affluent members of the community. The role of women in the thatching process has also been noted in various historical records. The use of reeds for thatching was more common in coastal regions where marshy land was available. The Vikings would harvest reeds during late summer, typically around August, when the plants had reached their full height and maturity. Once harvested, the reeds were dried and bundled, ready for use. The process of thatching with reeds involved layering the bundles in overlapping rows, secured with twine made from natural fibers, such as animal sinew or plant materials. This method not only provided an effective barrier against rain but also served as an insulator, keeping the interiors warm during the frigid winter months. In the northern regions, particularly in Norway and Iceland, heather was often used due to its availability in the wild. By the early 10th century, Viking settlers had adapted their building techniques to incorporate heather into their thatching. The heather was harvested during the late summer months, traditionally gathered in August, when the flowers were in bloom. The plants would then be dried and bundled into large clusters. This material was particularly effective for roofing as it possessed excellent insulating properties and, when properly maintained, could last for several years. One notable example of Viking roofing techniques can be observed at the reconstructed Viking farm at Lofoten in the Lofoten Islands of Norway. This site, which dates back to approximately 500 AD, showcases traditional longhouse architecture with a thatched roof. The builders employed a combination of straw and heather for thatching, demonstrating the adaptability of Viking construction methods to their local environment. The longhouse itself measures about 83 feet in length and 26 feet in width, with a central hearth that provided both warmth and a means for cooking. Historical records, such as the writings of the Arab traveler Ibn Fadlan in the 10th century, describe the Viking houses as having roofs that were steep and often adorned with sod, which provided additional insulation and stability. The use of sod, typically harvested from the earth in blocks, was common in regions where wood was scarce. It was laid over the thatch as a protective layer, helping to keep the thatch intact and adding weight to prevent it from being blown away in strong winds. This technique was particularly prevalent in areas like Iceland, where the volcanic soil provided ample sod for construction. In addition to the materials and construction techniques, the Vikings were also noted for their communal approach to building. It was not uncommon for entire communities to come together to assist in the construction of a new longhouse or barn, sharing labor and resources. This practice fostered a sense of community and ensured that the structures were built to withstand the test of time. The process usually involved a series of stages. First, a sturdy wooden frame was erected, followed by the installation of the roof structure, and finally, the application of thatching materials. The Viking era, spanning from approximately 793 to 1066 AD, was marked by significant advancements in construction techniques and materials. By the end of this period, Viking architecture had evolved to reflect the diverse environments they inhabited, adapting to both coastal and inland settings. The legacy of Viking building methods is still evident in some Scandinavian architectural styles today, reflecting their ingenious use of local materials and their deep understanding of the natural world. This construction ingenuity allowed the Vikings not only to survive but to thrive in some of the most challenging environments in Europe. The Viking settlement roof thatching inspection procedures and material affordability guidelines can be understood through a detailed examination of construction methods, maintenance procedures, financial records, personnel, and technical specifications. Construction methods and materials. Viking roofs were primarily constructed using local natural materials, emphasizing the use of thatch, timber, and sod. Thatching materials varied based on regional availability, with straw from barley or rye being the most commonly used in southern Scandinavia, while reed and heather were preferred in coastal areas. The average thatch thickness was approximately 30 to 60 centimeters, providing excellent insulation properties. The construction process began with the selection of a suitable site, often elevated to avoid water accumulation. The roof structure was typically framed with timber, using oak or spruce, which were abundant in the region. The timber was carefully cut to lengths averaging 3 meters, with crossbeams placed at intervals of 1 meter to provide adequate support. A notable technique utilized by the Vikings was the A-frame design, which employed a pitch of approximately 45 degrees, allowing for effective water runoff and snow shedding. The thatching process itself was meticulous. Thatch bundles, measuring approximately 60 centimeters in width and 90 centimeters in length, were tightly bound with natural twine made from plant fibers or animal sinew. These bundles were then laid in overlapping rows, with the lower rows secured more firmly to prevent wind uplift. This method not only ensured durability but also enhanced the aesthetic appeal of the structures, as the thatched roofs took on a characteristic layered appearance. Maintenance procedures. Regular maintenance of thatched roofs was essential for prolonging their lifespan. Inspections were typically conducted biannually, in spring and autumn, to assess the condition of the thatch. During these inspections, a qualified individual, commonly referred to as a thatcher, would examine the roof for signs of wear such as thinning areas or water ingress. Repairs were generally executed using a standardized procedure. If a section of thatch was found to be defective, it would be carefully removed, taking care to avoid damage to the surrounding material. New bundles of thatch, cut to the standard dimensions, would then be prepared and affixed in place, ensuring that the orientation of the thatch remained consistent with the original installation. In addition to thatch repairs, regular checks for pest infestations were conducted. The most common pests included birds and rodents, which could compromise the integrity of the roof. Preventative measures, such as the installation of wooden barriers or the use of natural repellents, were employed to deter these animals. Financial records and costs. The financial records of Viking settlements reveal a structured approach to budgeting for roofing materials and maintenance. A detailed ledger from the year 850 AD indicates that the average cost of thatch per square meter was approximately 2 silver coins, while timber for roofing support was valued at 1 silver coin per 1 meter length. Given that an average longhouse required roughly 100 square meters of thatch and 30 meters of timber, the total initial cost for roofing materials could amount to approximately 200 silver coins. Maintenance expenses were also meticulously recorded. Annual costs for routine inspections and minor repairs were typically around 20 silver coins. In cases of severe damage, such as that caused by storms, the costs could increase significantly, with one recorded incident in 865 AD resulting in expenses exceeding 100 silver coins. Additionally, heather was commonly utilized in the more northern settlements, where wood was scarce. In places like the Orkney Islands, Viking builders would harvest heather during the late summer and early autumn months, as the plant was known for its insulating properties. The heather was bundled and layered upon the roof structure, creating a thick, protective barrier against the harsh northern winds and rain. The process of heather thatching involved a meticulous technique of layering, where bundles were laid in overlapping rows to ensure complete coverage. This technique was crucial for preventing water ingress, which could lead to significant structural damage over time. The construction of the roofing itself was a complex process that involved not only the selection of materials but also a deep understanding of structural engineering. Viking roofs were generally built on a framework of timber, which was often sourced from local forests. The timber was typically cut and shaped in the spring months, between April and June, when trees were easier to work with due to the sap rising. The frames were designed to support the weight of the thatch while also allowing for a steep pitch to facilitate rain runoff, a design choice that was critical in preventing water from pooling on the roof. In examining the settlement of Lonseux Meadows, a Norse site located in Newfoundland, Canada, we can observe a unique adaptation of Viking roofing techniques. Archaeological excavations have revealed the use of sod as a roofing material, which was layered on top of wooden beams. This method was likely employed due to the scarcity of traditional thatching materials in the region. The sod provided excellent insulation against the cold, and the combination of earth and grass helped to create a natural camouflage for the settlement, blending it into the surrounding landscape. The measurements and specifications of these roofs varied significantly depending on the size of the longhouses they covered. A typical Viking longhouse might measure around 20 meters in length and 6 meters in width, with a roof pitch that could reach angles of up to 45 degrees. This steep angle was not merely aesthetic, it was instrumental in ensuring that snow and rain would slide off rather than accumulate, which is especially important in regions with heavy snowfall during the winter months. Historically, the construction of these roofs would have been a community effort, with neighbors banding together during the thatching season to assist one another. This collaborative spirit is reflected in the Norse sagas, which often recount tales of communal labor during the summer months, emphasizing the importance of social bonds and mutual support in Viking society. The evolution of roofing techniques among the Vikings also reflects broader historical trends, such as the transition from purely functional structures to those that showcased wealth and status. As Viking society evolved, particularly during the late 9th and 10th centuries, there was an increased emphasis on decorative elements in architecture, including carved wooden facades and ornamental features on roofs. This shift is indicative of the growing complexity of Viking culture, which began to incorporate influences from the regions they interacted with through trade and exploration. In conclusion, the construction methods and materials used in Viking roofing were not only a testament to their ingenuity and adaptability but also a reflection of their social structures and cultural values. Through the use of regional materials and communal labor, Vikings were able to create roofs that were both functional and representative of their identity, allowing them to thrive in diverse environments across Europe and beyond. The legacy of these roofing practices continues to inform modern thatching techniques and regional architecture, highlighting the enduring influence of Viking craftsmanship. The construction methods employed in Viking settlement roof thatching inspection procedures reveal a remarkable degree of consistency and pragmatism throughout the period of 800 to 1100 CE. The primary materials utilized in thatching during this era included straw, reeds, and rushes, each selected for their availability, insulation properties, and durability. Research indicates that in regions such as Scandinavia, rye straw was predominantly used due to its long, strong stems, which averaged between 60 to 90 centimeters in length. The harvesting periods for these materials typically occurred in late summer to early autumn, ensuring that the plants were adequately dried before application. The initial construction phase of thatched roofs involved layering these natural materials in a specific orientation to promote water runoff and minimize water ingress. Evidence from archaeological sites suggests that roofs were constructed with a pitch angle of approximately 45 degrees, a design that effectively facilitated drainage. The thatch was often secured using wooden battens or pegs made from local timber, which would have been approximately 3 to 5 centimeters in diameter and spaced at intervals of 30 to 50 centimeters along the roof's length. This method not only provided structural integrity but also allowed for the natural settling of the thatch over time. Maintenance procedures for thatched roofs were established primarily to extend the lifespan of the roofing material and to ensure the integrity of the dwelling. Regular inspections were conducted at least biannually, with a focus on identifying signs of wear, such as sagging areas or the presence of mold. Historical records indicate that maintenance teams, composed of 2 to 3 skilled thatchers, would remove and replace damaged sections of thatch. The replacement thatch was typically cut to length, around 30 centimeters, and inserted into the existing layers, ensuring a seamless repair. In terms of financial records, the costs associated with thatching were meticulously documented in local sagas and administrative texts. The average cost of thatching a modest Viking longhouse, approximately 8 meters by 4 meters, was recorded to be around 20 to 30 silver coins, equivalent to the value of a small livestock animal. This cost included both materials and labor, with laborers earning an average wage of 1 silver coin per day for their work, which often spanned several days depending on the complexity of the roof and the local availability of materials. Personnel involved in the thatching process typically held specific job descriptions. The chief thatcher, or thatcher, was responsible for overseeing the entire operation, from the procurement of materials to the final inspection of the roof. This individual often had extensive experience, usually ranging from 10 to 15 years in the field of thatching, and was adept at navigating both the practical and financial aspects of the work. Supporting the chief thatcher were apprentice thatchers, generally aged between 12 and 18 years, who learned the craft through hands-on experience. Their job entailed gathering materials, preparing the workspace, and assisting in the installation of thatch under close supervision. Technical specifications for thatched roofs were somewhat standardized, although there was regional variation based on local customs and available resources. The thickness of the thatch layer was typically maintained at a minimum of 20 to 30 centimeters, providing substantial insulation against the harsh Scandinavian winters. Additionally, the thatch was often installed in overlapping layers, with the lower layers being approximately 5 to 10 centimeters thicker than the upper layers to enhance weather resistance. The establishment of bureaucratic regulations concerning thatching was a gradual process, influenced by the need for standardized practices that could be communicated effectively across the varying Viking territories. The introduction of regional assemblies, known as things, served as a forum for discussing and resolving issues related to construction and maintenance practices. This was especially crucial in areas where settlements were expanding rapidly, and the need for compliance with building standards became paramount. In the late 10th century, the enactment of laws governing the quality of thatching materials became a focal point of these assemblies. For example, in regions prone to damp conditions, legislations mandated that only specific types of reeds, proven to resist rot, could be utilized. The rationale was that substandard materials could lead to structural failures, posing risks to the safety of inhabitants and livestock alike. Thus, inspectors were charged with ensuring adherence to these laws, often conducting examinations of the materials used and the methods employed during the thatching process. Moreover, these regulations also included stipulations regarding the appropriate pitch of roofs, which were designed to facilitate effective water runoff and ensure the longevity of thatched roofs. As a result, inspectors developed detailed checklists that outlined specific measurements and criteria to be assessed during each evaluation. This bureaucratic oversight was further complemented by the establishment of penalties for non-compliance, which could range from fines to mandates for immediate repairs. Part 9: Supply Chain and Logistics. The logistics surrounding the supply chain of thatching materials were intricate, reflecting the interconnected nature of Viking settlements and their reliance on trade networks. The procurement of thatching materials was not merely a localized endeavor, it often involved extensive coordination among various settlements. The exchange of goods, including reeds, straw, and timber, facilitated the establishment of a vibrant marketplace where thatchers could source high-quality materials. Transporting materials to construction sites was a significant logistical undertaking. In coastal regions, thatching materials were often ferried by boat, while inland communities relied on horse-drawn carts. The transport process was fraught with challenges, particularly in inclement weather, which could hinder access to remote locations. Consequently, thatchers developed strategies to optimize their supply chain, including seasonal procurement practices that aligned with the harvest cycles of different regions. Additionally, the rise of trade routes fostered a burgeoning market for specialized thatching materials, leading to the emergence of local artisans who became adept at sourcing and preparing these materials for use. The establishment of trade agreements among Viking communities facilitated the exchange of techniques and materials, further enhancing the quality and durability of thatched roofs across the regions. Part 10: Record-keeping methods. The meticulous nature of thatching inspections and material guidelines necessitated the establishment of thorough record-keeping methods. The practice of documentation evolved from informal notations to more structured systems as the bureaucratic oversight of thatching became more pronounced. Early records were often inscribed on wooden tablets or parchment, with inspectors noting the date of inspection, the condition of the roof, and any recommendations for repairs or replacements. As Viking settlements grew and the complexity of inspections increased, so too did the methods of record keeping. The introduction of seals and stamps became commonplace, allowing inspectors to authenticate their records and provide a sense of legitimacy to their evaluations. This practice not only served to track compliance but also fostered a culture of accountability among thatchers. By the late Viking Age, the advent of written language significantly impacted record-keeping practices. The incorporation of runes into inspection reports allowed for more detailed documentation, capturing not only the technical aspects of thatching inspections but also personal observations and anecdotes concerning the craftsmanship of local thatchers. These records served as both a historical archive and a practical guide for future generations, outlining best practices and lessons learned from past experiences. In conclusion, the evolution of roof thatching inspection procedures and material affordability guidelines within Viking settlements is a complex tapestry woven from regional variations, bureaucratic regulations, and evolving practices over time. The interplay of environmental factors, trade relationships, and societal changes contributed to a nuanced understanding of thatching that extended beyond mere practicality, reflecting the broader cultural values of Viking society. The enduring legacy of these thatching practices continues to be felt today, as modern approaches to roofing still draw upon the lessons learned during this pivotal period in history. The uneventful history of Viking settlement roof thatching inspection procedures and material affordability guidelines. Part 7: Regional Variations and Comparisons. The Viking Age, spanning approximately from the late 8th century to the early 11th century, witnessed a plethora of regional variations in roof thatching practices across the expansive Norse settlements. The geographical diversity of the regions inhabited by Viking settlers, ranging from the frigid fjords of Norway to the more temperate climates of England and Ireland, necessitated distinct thatching techniques tailored to local environmental conditions and available materials. In the Nordic regions, where the climate is characterized by prolonged winters and heavy snowfall, the predominant thatching material was rye straw, which, when properly layered, provided excellent insulation against the cold. This technique, known as rye thatching, involved a specific method of layering the straw at a steep angle to facilitate snow runoff. The steep slopes of the roofs helped prevent the accumulation of snow, which could otherwise lead to catastrophic structural failures. Conversely, in the British Isles, where the climate is milder and more humid, the use of water reed became prevalent. This material, sourced from the marshy areas of the wetlands, was not only abundant but also offered superior waterproofing capabilities. The British Viking settlers employed a method known as bundled reed thatching, which involved tightly bundling the reeds and securing them to a wooden frame. This method allowed for increased breathability while still maintaining an effective barrier against rain. The differences in regional practices also extended to the tools utilized for thatching. In Scandinavia, Viking thatchers often employed specialized knives known as thatching knives, which featured a curved blade ideal for cutting and shaping straw. In contrast, the British thatchers utilized a tool called a reed knife, which was more suited to the fibrous nature of reeds. These variations in tools not only reflect the adaptability of the Viking settlers but also contribute to the broader understanding of cultural exchange between the Norse and the indigenous populations of the regions they settled. Part 8: Evolution over different time periods. As the Viking settlements evolved over time, so too did the method. By the late Viking Age, a more bureaucratic approach to thatching began to emerge, with local chieftains and community leaders imposing regulations regarding roof construction. This was likely motivated by a desire to maintain standards within the community and to prevent the hazards associated with poorly thatched roofs, such as leakage or fire hazards. The establishment of inspection procedures became a necessary mechanism to ensure compliance with these newfound regulations. Part 10: Bureaucratic Regulations and Laws. The increasingly bureaucratic nature of Viking society brought with it a set of regulations that governed various aspects of life, including the thatching of roofs. Historical records suggest that local authorities, often represented by chieftains or village councils, began to formalize laws regarding the construction and maintenance of thatched roofs. These regulations were typically enacted to ensure public safety, aesthetic uniformity, and the preservation of community standards. One notable regulation mandated that all roofs must be inspected at the onset of each building season, typically in the spring, to ensure they met the established standards for both material quality and structural integrity. These inspections were often conducted by appointed officials known as roof wardens, who were responsible for assessing the condition of thatched roofs and ensuring compliance with the community's guidelines. The legal framework surrounding thatching included provisions for the types of materials permitted for use, the minimum thickness of thatch required for insulation, and guidelines on the slope of the roof, factors that collectively influence the longevity and effectiveness of the roofing structures. For instance, a law might stipulate that roofs must have a minimum slope of 45 degrees to facilitate rain runoff, a requirement that underscored the practical considerations of maintaining a weather-resistant dwelling. Failure to adhere to these regulations could result in penalties, ranging from fines to mandated repairs, which serve to reinforce the importance of maintaining a safe and aesthetically pleasing environment. Additionally, the bureaucratic oversight of thatching practices contributed to the development of a collective identity within Viking communities, as adherence to these regulations was often seen as a reflection of communal pride. Part 11: Supply Chain and Logistics. The logistics of sourcing and transporting thatching materials played a crucial role in the overall efficiency of roof construction in Viking settlements. The supply chain for thatching materials was often localized, with communities relying on the immediate resources available within their geographic area. However, as trade networks expanded, particularly during the Viking Age, the sourcing of thatching materials became increasingly complex. In regions where reed or sedge was prevalent, local thatchers typically harvested these materials during the late summer months, ensuring that they were dried and prepared for use before the onset of winter. This seasonal harvesting often involved coordinated efforts among community members, as the process of collecting and processing thatching materials was labor-intensive. The logistics of transporting these materials to the building sites were generally straightforward, as they could be carried by hand or transported using simple wooden carts. In contrast, Regions that relied on straw or rushes for thatching often faced challenges related to transportation, particularly in the case of longer distances. The bulkiness of straw made it cumbersome to transport, leading to the establishment of informal trade routes between neighboring settlements. This intercommunity trade not only facilitated the exchange of thatching materials but also fostered social connections among Viking communities. As trade relationships developed with neighboring regions, thatchers began to experiment with materials sourced from further afield. The importation of different types of grasses and reeds necessitated logistical planning, as these materials often required specific handling and storage conditions to maintain their quality. The increased demand for diverse thatching materials also led to the emergence of specialized roles within the community, including those responsible for the procurement and transport of these goods. The complexities of the thatching supply chain ultimately reflected broader economic trends within Viking society, highlighting the interconnectedness of local and regional economies. The reliance on a diverse array of materials and the establishment of trade networks underscored the resourcefulness of Viking communities and their ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Part 12. Record-keeping methods. The methods of record-keeping related to thatching practices were often rudimentary, reflecting the broader literacy levels of Viking society. However, that does not suggest a lack of diligence or attention to detail. Rather, the techniques employed for record-keeping were pragmatic and adapted to the needs of the community. In many settlements, record-keeping was conducted through oral traditions, where experienced thatchers would pass down knowledge and practices through storytelling and verbal instruction. The importance of oral history in preserving thatching techniques cannot be overstated, as it enabled the continuation of craftsmanship across generations. Elderly members of the community often served as repositories of knowledge, sharing insights on the best materials and methods for thatching based on their personal experiences. For more formalized record-keeping, particularly in larger settlements or those with established bureaucratic structures, simple tally marks and notations would be inscribed on wooden tablets or pieces of parchment. These records would often document the quantity and type of materials used, the names of thatchers involved in the construction, and the dates of inspections. While these records were not always comprehensive, they provided an essential framework for accountability within the community. The establishment of village councils or committees responsible for overseeing thatching practices also contributed to the development of a more structured approach to record-keeping. Minutes of meetings and decisions regarding thatching standards were often recorded, providing a historical account of the evolving practices and regulations within the community. As Viking society transitioned into the later Middle Ages, the advent of more sophisticated forms of record-keeping became evident. The introduction of written language and the spread of literacy facilitated a shift toward more formalized documentation of thatching practices. This evolution allowed for greater consistency in the recording of inspection results, material inventories, and compliance with regulations. In conclusion, the exploration of regional variations, the evolution of practices, bureaucratic regulations, supply chain logistics, and record-keeping methods associated with Viking roof thatching underscores the intricate and multifaceted nature of this seemingly mundane topic. The interplay of environmental factors, social structures, and economic conditions shaped the development of thatching practices across time and space, painting a rich tapestry of Viking life that transcends the surface-level simplicity of roofing. The uneventful history of Viking settlement roof thatching inspection procedures and material affordability guidelines. Part 9, Regional Variations and Comparisons. The regional variations in thatching techniques and materials across the Viking settlements provide a fascinating. In the early Viking Age, thatching was rudimentary, focusing primarily on functionality. The primary concern was ensuring that roofs were watertight and could withstand the rigors of the weather. During this period, the materials used were often sourced locally, and the skills required for thatching were passed down through oral tradition. However, as Viking society became more complex and trade networks expanded, the introduction of new materials, such as imported reeds, began to influence local practices. By the late Viking Age, with the advent of more sophisticated agricultural techniques and the establishment of trade routes, thatching evolved to include a wider array of materials and styles. This period saw the emergence of specialized thatching workshops, where skilled artisans began to refine their techniques. Inspection procedures during this time became increasingly formalized, with records being kept of the materials used and the methods employed. The need for quality assurance became paramount as settlements grew in size and permanence, leading to the establishment of guidelines that would govern the industry. Part 12, Bureaucratic Regulations and Laws. The bureaucratic evolution regarding roof thatching can be traced through various legal documents and edicts from the Viking Age. In particular, the later establishment of the Thing, a governing assembly in Norse society, played a crucial role in codifying regulations surrounding construction practices, including thatching. One notable edict was the Thatcher's Law, which mandated that all thatched roofs must be inspected annually. This law stipulated that a qualified inspector, often a seasoned thatcher with at least a decade of experience, was required to assess the roof for structural integrity and compliance with the communal standards of thatching. The law further outlined the acceptable materials, emphasizing the use of locally sourced straw and prohibiting the use of certain imported materials that were deemed unsuitable for the climate. Additionally, these regulations addressed issues of liability. If a thatched roof were to fail and result in property damage, the law dictated that the inspector could be held accountable, thereby incentivizing thorough inspections. This legal framework served not only to protect property but also to elevate the status of thatchers as skilled professionals within the community. Part 13, Supply Chain and Logistics. The supply chain for thatching materials during the Viking Age was intricate, reflecting the interconnectedness of different regions and their reliance on one another for essential resources. The logistics of material procurement were paramount in ensuring that thatchers had access to the necessary supplies to maintain the roofs of Viking longhouses and other structures. In Scandinavia, the harvesting of thatching materials typically coincided with the agricultural calendar. Rye straw was collected post-harvest, while reeds were gathered from coastal marshes during late summer when water levels were low. Transporting these materials, however, posed a significant challenge. The use of small boats and sleds was common, particularly in areas where waterways facilitated the movement of goods. In contrast, in the British Isles, where trade routes were more established, thatching materials could be transported overland, often using pack animals to carry the load to remote settlements. The logistics of importing materials, such as reeds from continental Europe, saw the emergence of trade agreements and barter systems. Thatched roofers would often exchange local goods, such as fish or textiles, for these sought-after materials, illustrating the interdependence of various Viking settlements. Part 14: Record-Keeping Methods. The meticulous nature of record-keeping regarding thatching practices cannot be overstated. While the Viking Age is often romanticized for its oral traditions, evidence suggests that written records were increasingly utilized, especially as societal structures became more complex. Runestones and other inscriptions have been found that detail materials used in construction, including thatching, and the artisans responsible for the work. These records served multiple purposes. They provided a historical account of construction practices, ensured accountability among thatchers, and offered a means of legal recourse should disputes arise regarding the quality of work. Local chieftains often maintained ledgers that documented the annual inspections of thatched roofs, noting any deficiencies and the corresponding remedies required. This practice fostered a culture of accountability and transparency within the community. Furthermore, the recording of materials and methods allowed for the establishment of best practices, which could then be shared among thatchers throughout the region. In conclusion, the history of Viking settlement roof thatching inspection procedures and material affordability guidelines is a tapestry woven from diverse threads of regional variation, evolving practices, bureaucratic regulation, supply chain intricacies, and diligent record-keeping. Each of these aspects contributes to a broader understanding of how the Viking worldview shaped their approach to construction and maintenance of their built environment. The mundane yet essential nature of these practices underscores the significance of thatching in the daily lives of Viking settlers and their enduring legacy in the annals of history. The uneventful history of Viking settlement roof thatching inspection procedures and material affordability guidelines. Introduction. In the vast annals of history, the Viking Age stands as a period marked by exploration, trade, and settlement. Among the many facets of Viking life, the construction and maintenance of roofs, a seemingly mundane aspect, plays a crucial role in understanding the broader societal norms, economic conditions, and environmental adaptations of these Norse seafarers. This extensive examination delves into the minutiae of roof thatching inspection procedures and material affordability guidelines within Viking settlements. Here, we aim not only to explore the technical aspects of thatching but also to weave in narratives about minor historical figures, specific case studies, and archaeological findings, all of which contribute to a comprehensive understanding of this subject. Historical context and minor figures. While the Viking Age is often dominated by the exploits of famous figures such as Ragnar Lothbrok and Leif Erikson, lesser-known individuals played vital roles in the day-to-day operations of Viking settlements, particularly in the realm of construction. For instance, one such figure is Halvard the Thatch Keeper, a lesser-known craftsman from the settlement of Birka, active around the late 9th century. Halvard was responsible for overseeing the thatching of roofs in his community, a task that required not only skill but also an understanding of local materials and weather patterns. Halvard's contributions are documented in the local sagas, where he is noted for his meticulous inspections of thatched roofs. According to the saga of Birka, it is said that Halvard would climb atop each dwelling during the first spring thaw, his keen eyes searching for the slightest sign of wear, for a leaky roof could spell doom for one's family. This emphasizes the importance of roof maintenance in Viking culture, as it was not merely about shelter but also reflected the community's status and prosperity. In recent archaeological endeavors in the Viking settlement of Lonseux Meadows, dating back to approximately 1000 CE, have unearthed significant findings regarding thatching techniques. Excavations revealed remnants of thatch that were remarkably well preserved, enabling researchers to analyze the materials used and the methods of application. It was determined that various grasses were employed based on their availability and suitability for the harsh North Atlantic climate. Carbon dating of thatched materials indicated a timeline of replacement and repair that aligns closely with the seasonal changes typical of the region. For instance, it was observed that repairs were most frequently made in the spring, coinciding with the end of winter storms. This pattern highlights the Vikings' adaptability and the importance placed on maintaining roofs as a protective measure against the elements. Moreover, the discovery of tools specifically designed for thatching, such as the thatching knife and straw comb, suggests a level of specialization within the craft. These tools were not merely functional, their designs indicate a thoughtful approach to the craft, emphasizing efficiency and safety during the thatching process. ### primary source quotations, invented but plausible. To further elucidate the practices surrounding Viking thatching, one can reference the following invented quotations attributed to the historical figures discussed earlier. Gerda the thatch weaver purportedly stated, "In the weaving of the straw, one finds the strength of the home, let not the winds of the north claim what is rightfully ours." This reflects the cultural significance placed on durable thatching as a means of ensuring safety and security. Astrid the inspector is quoted as saying, "A roof is not merely a cover, it is the guardian of the hearth. Each layer of thatch is a promise made to those who dwell beneath." This statement underscores the communal responsibility inherent in maintaining roofs, fostering a sense of collective ownership over the integrity of their structures. The council's directive following the storm in Hedeby was recorded as, "Let it be known, all roofs shall henceforth be fortified, for the wrath of the skies is not to be taken lightly." A well-thatched roof is the shield against the storms of fate. This emphasizes the Viking ethos of resilience in the face of adversity, highlighting the collective commitment to safeguarding homes through meticulous thatching practices. ### conclusion. In conclusion, the examination of Viking settlement roof thatching inspection procedures and material affordability guidelines reveals a rich and often overlooked aspect of Viking society. Through the lens of minor historical figures, specific case studies, comparative analyses, archaeological findings, and plausible primary source quotations, we can glean a deeper understanding of the complexities surrounding this seemingly mundane topic. While it may appear boring on the surface, the details of thatching practices and their implications for Viking communities provide an essential narrative of resilience, adaptability, and communal responsibility. As we delve into these intricate histories, we appreciate the significance of every thatched roof that has stood the test of time, bearing witness to the lives and stories of those who inhabited the Viking world. Thus, we conclude this exhaustive examination with a renewed respect for the humble thatch, a material that has sheltered generations and continues to evoke a sense of historical continuity and architectural heritage. And so, dear listeners, we come to the end of our gentle exploration into the uneventful history of Viking settlement roof thatching inspection procedures and material affordability guidelines. We embarked on a journey through time, where we discovered the careful craftsmanship and the thoughtful practices of our Viking ancestors. From their resourceful use of local materials to the meticulous procedures they followed in ensuring the integrity of their roofs, we've gained a deeper appreciation for the diligence and ingenuity that characterized their way of life. As we wandered through the verdant fields of history, we learned how these skilled artisans balanced practicality with sustainability, creating homes that were not just shelters but testaments to their connection with the land. We reflected on the importance of community and shared knowledge, as these traditions were passed down through generations, ensuring that the wisdom of the past continues to guide us today. In a world that often feels rushed and chaotic, it is soothing to remember that even the most mundane aspects of life, such as roof thatching, can reveal stories of resilience and harmony with nature. The simple guidelines they established for material affordability remind us that care and consideration for our surroundings are timeless values. As you settle down now, I invite you to take a deep breath and let the tranquility of this journey wash over you. Allow the peaceful imagery of thatched roofs swaying gently in the wind to fill your mind, creating a serene backdrop for your dreams. May the stories of the Vikings inspire you to find balance in your own life, embracing simplicity and connection in all that you do. If you find yourself longing to revisit this journey, know that you can replay this video anytime you wish. Each time, you may discover new layers of understanding and appreciation, as the soothing cadence of the narratives wraps you in comfort and warmth. As the night deepens and the stars twinkle above, I wish you a restful slumber filled with sweet dreams. May you drift off knowing that you carry the spirit of the Vikings, resilient, resourceful, and ever connected to the heartbeat of the world around you. So, dear listeners, as you close your eyes, let go of the day's worries and embrace the gentle embrace of night. Good night, and may your dreams be as peaceful as the thatched roofs of old.